What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Drone Camps channel. Today we're going to show you how to set up a 10-inch long-range drone in Betaflight and on the radio. Pretty much everything you need to know to get this up and flying for long range. The quad that we're looking at today is brand new from Geprc. It's the Mark IV LR10, and recently, if you want to go back and check out the LR8, we also reviewed their 8-inch, and this is the box that they sent me. It's pretty big. But this quad comes in at $319 for a 10-inch drone with Geprc gear on it. That's a pretty good price. So super cheap, and it's going to have better components on here. It is an analog quad, and it's running a 2.5 watt VTX, so you could get 6 to 10 miles out easily on that type of VTX. Very long range, and it also has a pretty big payload. This quad will lift up to 3 kilograms. And that is translated in America to about around 6.5 pounds. So it will lift quite a bit. And the maximum battery that they say to use on the website for this LR10 is 8,000 milliamp. But you know what? You could probably put a 10,000 milliamp battery on this. And 6S 10,000 will get you miles and miles. So today we're running TBS Crossfire again. They also have an ELRS version on their website if you want to grab one of those. If you already have a Boxer radio or you're running OpenTX or Edge TX firmware, we're going to show you how to set up the radio today with this quad. We're going to walk you through that installation. A lot of people have Radio Master radios out there. The TX12 is super popular. The Boxer is my personal favorite, as well as the TX16 super popular. But most of us are running Edge TX and OpenTX these days. So this radio setup that we're going to show you today will work out for your LR10 if you decide to get one. We're also going to talk about the suggested battery and props in this video to make this quad fly. So these are 10-inch glass fiber props from GemFan. These are pretty big. We'll put the link down below, and I mean, look at that. And we'll talk about the reason that they use glass fiber. But this will be a full tutorial today for complete setup of the LR10. I think you guys are gonna like this. So sit back, relax, and hopefully you learn something today. If you do, please become our Patreon on the channel, because we've been doing this now for 10 years. So 10 years, 44 million views, and viewers around the world learning new stuff all the time here on the channel. But again, I appreciate you for watching, and without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into some long-range FPV Big Daddy drone setup. Here we go. All right, guys, first thing we're going to do in this setup series is we're going to grab our Radio Master Boxer. If you have some other type of Radio Master radio, this will definitely work. Let's go ahead and go now into the menus, and what we're going to do is we're going to set up a drone from scratch. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to make a new model here, and we're going to name it LR10. We're also going to set up some switches right here up top, and we're going to set up an arm switch on SE. We're going to do SB right here for our 3 modes. We're also going to use SC right here, and that's going to be for beeper. And then SD will be for return to home. But we might not use that because this drone doesn't actually have GPS on it. You have to add that later, but I will show you how to add 4 switches in this tutorial. So next thing you're going to do is you're going to go down to your radio screen here, and so let's just follow along real simply, real closely. You're going to page over here. And right now this says DJI drone, but we're going to rename this LR10. Just simply name it LR10. You can name it Geprc LR10 if you want. Let me find the L there and just scroll through the letters. LR. I'm going to go to the left to get to the numbers. Scroll to 1. Now we're going to go 0 there. And if you have some other letters, just scroll all the way to the left and it'll take those letters off. Okay. Now we're going to go back again, press the return button, and we're going to hit model again. So go ahead and hit model. And now we're on LR10 here. So let's go ahead and page over. And if you press left, it'll take you to the bottom of this menu, and that's what we're going to do now. We could go ahead and set up switches first, but we're just going to leave it like this. So if you have internal RF set, this is an ELRS radio, so normally it's set to crossfire. If you're running ELRS, you want this set up to CRSF, just like that. The CRSF protocol, not crossfire. So CRSF, that's good. Okay. Now we're going to turn that off if you're not using ELRS radio. If you're using TBS crossfire, this is what you're going to do. So go down to CRSF here, make sure that's active. And once that's active and your radio's on, your crossfire module should be lit up. And at this point, you should have already put your crossfire module in your radio. So let's go back to the radio settings here. And the first thing we want to do is add some switches in your radio. So that looks good for the setup. Now we're going to go ahead and page over a couple more times, and we're going to go to the mixes here. So, and I'm just going to delete these real quick so you can see how these are set up. So in your radio, you should be seeing that you don't have anything past channel 4. It should look all blank like this. And again, I'm just deleting these so that you can see exactly how to do this. And once you do this procedure, you're going to have switches on your radio. That means that inside Betaflight, things are going to start working. So scroll down to channel number 5, click on that. And now we're going to move. We're going to go to source, click on source. And we're going to press the button that we want active. So that's SE. Click back on the jog wheel, make that selection. Now return. Now we have one switch set up for SE. That's going to be our arm switch. So that one's good. Now we're going to put modes on SB here. So the SB switch. Now go down to channel 6, long press on this jog wheel, go into source, click that one time, see it starts flashing. And now it's waiting for us. Whoops. It's waiting for us to make a selection. So just move your switch, whatever 3-position switch you want, you can put on this next one. So that's channel 6. Now I got SB on channel 6. Okay. So now return again, go to channel 7 here, CH7, go down to S3. We're going to make SC our beeper button there. So go back. That one's good. And you can have a visual there. The visual will show you that you did in fact do that. And so for this one, click your jog wheel button. We're going to put SD right there. So when I switch that, now it's on SD. Press return twice again. And now you have 4 switches set up on your radio. Okay, so that was pretty easy. So now that we have our radio settings, just some primary radio settings set up, we're going to go ahead and bind the model to the radio. Now let's go ahead and bind up TBS Crossfire to our radio master radio. If you have ELRS, the procedure for that is to go into the radio, into the ELRS settings, and click bind inside the radio in the system menu where your scripts are. And then you're going to plug in the quad 3 times. When you see the blue light stop blinking, that's when it's bound up to the radio. For TBS Crossfire, we're going to do it just like this. We're going to go ahead and plug in the quad here. And you want to grab something preferably non-conductive, like a bamboo skewer with a sharp point on the end. And what this will allow us to do is press that gold button on the very back of the quad. You should be able to maybe pull your receiver out a little bit. It's kind of tight in there, but I'm going to go ahead and see if I can't get this in there. It looks like the light went out. When you see the light go out on the receiver, it's in bind mode. So now what we're going to do is we're going to grab our TBS Crossfire module, hold down that button, and you'll see XF transmitter there. Click that. Now you're going to click bind. And it's going to ask you if you want to update the receiver. Click yes. And now you're going to wait through this process for it to update. Don't turn anything off. Let it update. And once it updates, it's going to start the bind procedure. So you can see this is flashing down here, and it is updating. So once this updates and it binds, this light right here should turn solid green on the radio. We're just going to let that go through the process. This is at 31%. It probably takes about 3 to 5 minutes for the bind process. Now at this point, once your receiver is already updated, you should start to see a green flashing light on your TBS Crossfire module. It is flashing green, so it is in the binding process. And eventually this is going to go solid green. If it doesn't, that means you probably need to move your radio away from the quad a little bit and go ahead and back off. So right now it was just warning me that the signal was too high on the bench. Sometimes you get that warning, just press that button, and now we're bound up because we have a solid green. Now we can go ahead and go inside Betaflight and set up all of our sticks and our switches to be moving in the right direction. Okay guys, this part of the tutorial is for setting up the drone inside Betaflight and making it work with your Radio Master radio. So let's go ahead and grab a USB-C cable. You need a USB-C cable. I'm going to plug this into the side of the computer first, and I'm going to plug it into the flight controller on the drone. The port should be on the right hand side of the drone right here. So you want to take this cable, make sure it's a data cable, and go ahead and plug it in here. And you'll see that flight controller light up. Now go ahead and turn on your radio, and sometime once your radio's on, you should see that your sticks are working inside Betaflight. That's kind of the hope here inside Betaflight. And if you already have your drone on a flat and level surface, go ahead and get it super flat on your desk or whatever you're working on. You can kind of see it sitting on an angle right now. So inside Betaflight in the setup menu, the first thing we need to do is calibrate the accelerometer. This will make sure that the drone is flying nice and level. So go ahead and click calibrate accelerometer. Next thing you want to do is go ahead and click reset Z axis over here on the right hand side, and that will bring the quad, rear of the quad facing you. So on the bench, your quad should also be facing you. And when you move your quad backwards, forwards, left, and right here, you should see that it does the same thing on the screen. If it doesn't, something's wrong. And we're not going to go into that in this video because from Geprc, everything should be absolutely right. They also give you which way that the motors turn with little stickers on top of the motors. So next thing we're going to do is we're going to go down and check out the ports. On the ports tab from the factory, we only have a couple things active here. On UART1, we have VTX IRC Tramp. That is for smart audio. And if you move your stick on your transmitter to the left and up inside your goggles, that will take you inside the OSD menu where you can change band, channel, as well as the power of the VTX on this drone. So that's pretty handy. And again, that's called smart audio. On UART2, you can check out Serial RX right here. That is for TBS crossfire, so we know that our receiver is soldered down to that channel, and that should be active. So next we're going to go all the way down to receiver here, and we're going to check out our stick direction. Now, your sticks should be working right. If they're not, you want to change the channel map feature right here from default maybe down to spectrum. That should change it over to TAER. Sometimes in Crossfire, the TAER 1234 is the channel map that you need. In my case, my radio is set up differently, so when I click save down there, look what happens to the quad. It's backwards. So go ahead and leave it on AETR. If your radio is different, put it on TAER. I'm going to click save again and see it brings it back. Now we're going to test out the channel maps and the switches that we set up in the radio. So go ahead and grab your radio, and when I press left here, you should see that the yaw moves back and forth, left and right. That blue line right there follows left and right for the yaw. Now we'll test throttle, up, down. Now we're going to test out the roll axis. Left should be the red bar, right. That looks good. And purple is pitch, forward should be up like that and down. So it should move just like that. Now let's test out our switches. The SE switch on the top of the radio is auxiliary 1. That works. SB works for aux 2. That's our mode switch. And SC for our beeper. And finally, SD is going to be aux 4 for GPS. Okay, all those switches are working. Now, if they're not, probably need to go back in the instructional and check out the switch setup again. So go ahead and press save again for good measure. And now we're going to go over to failsafe. Now, this drone is set up to drop, and for yours you want to set that up to drop as well, because right now this drone doesn't have GPS. So if you get out there and you lose signal, you want to, you want to be able to know where your long range drone is. So 100% I suggest getting GPS and installing that on your drone if you want it back, because the only way you're going to get it back, if you lose it out there right now, if it fail safes to the ground, you're going to have to hike in and get it. So that's something to consider there. If you have GPS on there and it's set up properly and field tested, then you know it's going to level out, come back up, and come to home. So very important there. So we're going to go to presets. Everything there will be absolutely the same. PID tuning, we're going to leave all that the same. It should be good from the factory, but we'll check it out. If it's not a good PID tune on here, what Drone Camps will do is we'll make a video with some PIDs on there for the LR10, my own custom tune, because I do tune things for people. Now we're going to go down to OSD. OSD, I'm going to turn some things off here because they have this huge, it looks like some kind of fighter jet thing up here, and we've got the compass up at the very top, which we don't need because we don't have GPS. We're going to leave the very important that you leave this on there. This is the per cell battery voltage. Leave that on because it's very important when you're flying Lions. The lowest you can fly a Lion is 2.8 volt. Anything below 2.8 or around 2.6 is going to start to damage it. Once you land, that voltage will go up though, so it is deceiving. We're also going to leave the time on there, and we're going to leave this telemetry for the VTX on there as well. The throttle point is in the middle right here, and the main battery voltage of all the cells there. We're going to leave that on there. So I'm going to take these crosshairs off. We're going to take the compass bar off. We don't have any kind of GPS on there, so we're going to take that off. The average cell voltage is good. Horizon, artificial horizon sidebars, take that off. Uncheck that. I'm moving that out of the way. And then I've also got, looks like I have a artificial horizon as well. Turn that off. And I'll scroll back up and you can see it's gone. Leave on your warning right here. This is your warning, just in case you get a low battery. And we're going to address that next. If you're flying a Lion, it's super important. Like I mentioned before, go to power and battery next. And it says 3.3 minimum cell voltage here. Since we're flying a Lion, if we were flying a LiPo, we could leave it the same. If we're flying a Lion, we're going to crank that all the way down to 2.8. And once you're at 2.8 volt per cell, you should be back at the home point. You should be almost landing at that point. So now I'm going to crank the warning cell voltage down to about 2.8. And that way it's not bugging me when I throttle up and say the power voltage dips, but then it comes back up and I'm fine. Sometimes you have to power up the throttle, and sometimes you'll dip voltage on a cell. So I don't want it to be, telling me I'm doing something wrong when I dip voltage. So let's go ahead now to modes, and let's check out what we have from the factory as far as modes go. Remember, our SE switch is here. So if we move this SE switch, it should show you that we're arming, and we're going to leave these bars right exactly where they are. Now, a lot of times with these FPV drones, I like to take off in stabilize mode, and that's otherwise known as angle mode. We have that on aux2. Remember, our 3-position switch was here on SB, so we have it right here on SB. And when we move that, you should see it also move inside Betaflight. But we're going to move this, take this gold bar, click it right in the middle, and drag it over to here. Stop. Grab the end piece, drag that over, and stop right there. Now press save. That way, when we arm the quad, the first mode that you're going to be in is stabilize mode. So you can do your takeoff. I suggest taking off and stabilize. That way you don't crash on takeoff. Pretty important just to get away from the home point. Flying up in angle mode and stabilize mode. Once you get up a good level away from wherever it is you take off, click into acro mode next. So the next switch down, we're just going to simply mid stick right there where that gold little bar is at 1500, you're going to be in acro. So when you switch back up to the very top of the switch, that's going to put you back in angle mode. So if you're way out there, I suggest 100% putting angle mode on a long range drone, because if you have a problem, you get discombobulated, something goes wrong, and you need a bailout switch, flipping back into angle mode is great, especially if you lose video. Say you lost video, you can flip back into angle mode, and what you do is you throttle up and you go straight up as high as you can go. And then eventually, a lot of times your video signal will come back once you get out of the woods or higher up in the air. And if you're in angle mode, you don't have to worry about it as you're throttling up. You're just going up to regain signal back to your goggles. And that has saved me before in the past. So keep angle mode on your long range drones always, okay? So go down to auxiliary 3, beeper. This looks good. That was on SC switch, so we're going to switch the SC switch just to check that. And you see it highlights when I'm all the way down. That's good. And we don't have GPS on this quad, so that'll be the only 3 switches that you have on this quad. So go down to the right hand corner and press save, and we are good on the modes. Now let's go to the configuration page. It's the 3rd tab down from the top, and we have barometer on here. We could turn barometer off because right now we don't have GPS. Okay, so switch that off. Board and sensor alignment are good. Accelerometer trim. We're going to leave RX loss and set checked on. That way we'll have a beeper on the quad. Once you plug in a battery, you can check that out. Make sure that beeper is working. And now arm angle 180. We don't have turtle mode on this because you don't really put turtle mode on a 10-inch quad. We just don't do that. Beeper configuration, we're going to leave all that checked. Air mode looks good there. When you add GPS, you're going to turn on GPS here in this other features menu. And once you do that, you can see that it adds it down here on the left. But I'm going to turn it off for now because we don't have it. You'll also have to activate your GPS. Whatever port you solder it to, you have to activate it inside the port. And that's a whole different tutorial. So OSD is on, soft serial we don't need. Now we're going to go ahead and save those changes that we made here, save and reboot. It's going to reboot the flight controller. We're going to go back inside Betaflight now. So everything's looking pretty good here. If you guys have any questions at all, please put your comments down below in this video. I'll try to help you out during your LR10 setup or your 7 or 8-inch long range drone. A lot of them are pretty much the same out there. So this is a great series from Geprc that came in at a really affordable price. It's an amazing price, and the reason that it's so cheap is because they're not HD and they don't have GPS on them. So let's go ahead now and let's get outside of Betaflight and let's talk about how the props go on this drone, and we'll also give you our recommended battery. Okay, so at this point of the video, you're ready to test out your motors and just see if the arm. So go ahead, take off your motor nuts and put them in a little pile right there. And we're going to go ahead and grab the battery. This is our 8,000 milliamp battery. Just spin it around toward the back, have the back of the quad facing you for prop setup in the next part of this video. Just go ahead and plug in the battery, and we're going to test out to see if your receiver will actually arm the quad and the motor starts spinning. So this is the moment of truth. The SE switch that we made, the arm switch, go ahead and press that without the props on the quad, and you have a live drone. So the motors are spinning, it spins up. Don't worry about moving the throttle around on the bench without the props on there. It will do different things and it'll spin up to high power. Once you put the props on there, it's not going to do that. Next part of this video is making sure that you have motor direction proper, and that from the factory it should be set up, but sometimes a motor may be spinning the wrong direction. A really good way to do that, aside from these little paper tabs, now these paper tabs could be wrong. So this one says that this motor is spinning to the right, but a really easy method to check that, now that we know that our motors will spin, take a little 3-inch prop and we just bored out the center of it to have a little more play on the motor stem so that it freely spins. And this won't hurt you. If the worst thing that happens, it could fly off like a little kid's toy up in the air, which is totally fine. So we're just going to momentarily press the arm switch, and we're going to look for that right turn direction on that prop. So momentarily spin it, and you can probably see right here in the video that it's actually spinning to the right. And again, you don't have to press it all the way down so it totally engages. Just lightly press it and let go. And that'll just give you enough power in the motors to spin that prop. Now, if you accidentally arm it all the way, it could fly off. But we can see that that one's turned to the right, so that one's good. Now we can test this motor over here. This should be turning to the left. So we're going to put this prop on here, momentarily hit it. It is turning to the left. I see that. and take these paper tabs off as you go around. Okay. Now we're going to put it on this one. This one should be spinning to the right. So pay attention to that prop in the video right there. I went a little too long. Just momentarily press it here. That's looking pretty good. So it is spinning to the right. And you can double check prop direction again inside Betaflight in the motors tab. And that'll tell you what kind of setup you've got going on your quad. Sometimes it's props out in front, sometimes it's props in. And that one is turning to the left, okay? So all of our motor direction is good. And thanks to our tiny little 3-inch prop, now we have a visual of which direction they're turning. So at this point, you can go ahead and unplug the quad, and we're going to install the props. Now that you know which propeller turns which direction and which motor turns which direction, we're going to go ahead and install the right turn rear prop. So grab this prop here that has the leading edge in the front right here. You can see it kind of tapers up and it slopes down in the back. It's usually sharper in the back of the blade. So go ahead and drop that on and grab your wrench, your socket wrench, and we're going to go ahead and make sure this goes down nice and firm. So one of the biggest tips I can give you about these particular prop nuts is not to over tighten these, because they will strip. And once they strip, who knows if they're going to hold or not. So you want to be super careful. And these are going to turn to the right. So we're just going to go ahead and crank that down until it's nice and firm. And if you feel it start to slip on you, you might need to replace this prop nut. Okay. So we're going to go ahead down until it's nice and snug. Not going to over tighten it. You don't want this prop moving around. You don't want this prop sliding around on the top of this motor at all. If it moves around on you, it's not going to stay put. So that's the first prop on. And now you need to install the next 3. Now I'm just going to help you guys out with direction on the next 3. Remember, this is immediately over from motor number 1. Diagonal from that is also right turn motor. So you want to make sure you have that right turn prop. And again, that side should be flipped up, and that side goes down toward the ground on the back side of this prop. So there's a sharper edge on the back of it. Push it all the way down. And when you put your bolt on top of it, make double sure that this prop doesn't slide around and move after you tighten the nut up, okay? That's very, very important. Now, the next one is a left turn prop, and that's the only props you have left, so that's pretty easy. Now take this one over here, put this one on, and you're going to put these next 2 motor nuts on and firmly tighten those down, and you are good to go with the propeller installation. All right, so at this point, you're just about ready for your flight test. One more thing I'm going to suggest is going inside Betaflight, and before you put your propellers on, you really need to just go into the motors tab and check motor direction. We already did that physically, but it's good to just double check. You don't have to plug in the quad or turn the quad on, and just make sure that motor number 1 is going the right direction, motor number 2, motor 3, 4. Super, super important that you do that. So the next big thing that we need to do with this size of a drone before you take it out for your first flight, one of the most important things that we talk about on my channel is using a driver. If you get anything from China or any other country out there that is a ready to fly out of the box, almost ready to fly out of the box drone, you need to go over the entire thing with a driver. And what I mean by that is actually going around the quad. Each bolt, you want to make sure that each bolt is nice and snug, because sometimes from the factory they'll come loose. The most important bolts to tighten up are the bottom of each motor. There's 4 bolts on the bottom of each motor. Make sure that you tighten those up. If they're a little bit loose, go ahead and pull them out, and you want to put a little dab of Loctite on them, blue Loctite, and then put it back inside the motor. Just dab it off with your finger. You don't need a lot. Just make sure that the threads are covered with blue Loctite, and put Loctite on each of the motor bolts. Highly suggestible to make sure that you don't have any screws backing out of these motors while you're flying. You don't want that to happen. I've had that happen before too. It's really not fun to see a motor fly off a quad. Now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to put the 8,000 milliamp pack on this drone. So go ahead and grab one of your straps. You're going to place it underneath the frame here, in between the flight controller and the frame. And you want this kind of soft side facing up, the Velcro side facing down, and have both the buckles on this right side right here. Okay. Now we're going to take the battery, and this is an 8,000 pack, and I feel like these straps are just barely big enough to hold this on. So you might need a little bit larger strap with this. I don't know that Geprc was really accommodating an 8,000 strap, because it seems like it's just to the edge. Now it will hold this. It will hold on, but it could use a little bit bigger strap. And if you're nervous about that, you can use 3 straps on this battery. And that's highly recommended. Put as many straps as you want on here to keep this down. And if you want to go a little bit smaller for better comfort with these straps, use something like a 6S 6,000 milliamp pack. I'll put some links down below for the Nav series batteries. It's just a little smaller, a little cheaper, a little less flight time, but a little less bulky than the 8,000 size packs. These 8,000 size packs are pretty big, but they're going to get you the longest flight time. And if you want to go 10,000, you want to make sure that you indeed get a much larger battery strap. Now, one other tip we can talk about here is the balance lead in the very back right here. This doesn't twist up very well. You want to make sure this balance lead doesn't kind of flop into propellers back here. You got a lot of stuff hanging around back here. So what I usually do is I run a zip tie around some of this back here to keep it in check when I'm flying. So when you get back home, you can just take your snips and zip tie, take that zip tie off. But for this size quadcopter, 100% of the time, I'm zip tying things in place back here after they're plugged in to make sure that things stay in place. You definitely don't want any wires getting caught in these giant props, because you're going to have a catastrophe on your hands. But at this point, you should have a quad that's ready to take out there and flight test, line of sight first, off your landing pad. And then after you're comfortable with the way it flies, line of sight, in angle mode, stability mode, then go ahead and goggle up and do your first field test. We field test them first, fly them around the field, a couple football fields away. And as you get more comfortable with this quad, that's when you start flying it a little further away each time, a little more range, and then back and go out a little further and come back. Don't just fly off the first time and fly 5 miles out for your maiden flight. Learn this quad, learn what and how it flies. Very important to get to know a quad first before you really send it 5 or 6 miles out there. So get to know the quad first. And by all means, do add GPS to anything that you plan to fly long range. If you're flying range anywhere in the world, make sure that you have GPS on your drone. These drones are cheap, but they don't come with GPS. So that's something you definitely need to add to it. We also can offer some tutorials on how to add GPS to these drones, which we'll do coming up. I'll put my recommended GPS down in the video description, and batteries as well as propellers for the Mark IV LR10. But I hope you guys appreciated this review and all of this information we've packed in this video. Tried to give you a good amount of information so that you can learn a little more about long range. More coming up on the channel, guys, more new stuff and a flight test of this quad coming up on the channel. So stay tuned and please do click subscribe. I'll see you on the next one. Take care, guys.